The last time we were here, we were questioning if the Cowboys had a chance in the playoffs, and the weather was about 50 degrees colder. So it's been a while.
It has been quite a while, but we are here now, and welcome to the fourth episode of the MW Sports Show. Here again are Mr. M and Mr. W, and we once again have a lot on tap today. Now, quickly before we get into the content for today, we do realize it's been about 4 months since the last episode. The goal will be for that not to be the case again, but as you can imagine, over the school year can be challenging since we both now go to different colleges. But with that being said, we are ready here for the fourth episode of the MW Sports Show right now. Let's start off with the draft, and more specifically, the draft for the Green Bay Packers, and how we, kind of feel about the draft as a whole. It was, I'd say, overall a pretty solid draft. We got a lot of valued picks, a lot of good safeties, and some good linebackers and stuff. So, hopefully it's building for the future. Obviously, the first pick is the pick that you're going to look at the most. So I'll start with that here. Jordan Morgan, the offensive lineman. And, that was an interesting selection for the Packers. That was one that I think a lot of people were confused about. I think a lot of people wanted them to go corner like Kool-Aid McKinstry or Cooper DeJean. And if they wanted to get an offensive lineman, there was still Graham Barton there. And I think he went to the Buccaneers the very next pick. So it was an interesting pick. I think Jordan Morgan will probably ultimately be okay. But it did get better after that.
It did. It did. It seemed like Gutekunst got better with each pick. There was a lot of people not happy on night one, but by the end of night three, I think all I was hearing, even in social media comments, was good stuff. So that was just a satisfying, well done job, I think, by Gutekunst. I think that there's obviously a lot of things that he's done that have made people doubt him over his time here. But I think that he's obviously with Jordan Love, he's hit on his last few decisions. I think that this draft continued that trend.
Yeah, well, looking down the line at some of those picks you were talking about, Edgar and Cooper, I think, was said to be one of the best value picks in the entire draft. And Javon Bullard out of Georgia, the safety, right after that. Both of those were considered very good picks, and I think they can come in right away and make an impact on the defense. Hopefully, Jordan Morgan can do the same ultimately offensively, but it was still kind of an interesting choice as the first overall pick.
It was, and I think that ultimately a lot of the talking about draft picks occurs right after the draft, but you never do truly know how things will pan out and if a draft is good until 5, 10 years down the line.
Well, yeah, definitely. Tough thing to grade. One and more interesting thing to note here with the draft, you got a few interesting names that kind of made me think of other players. So, first of all, in the third round, I believe Marshawn Lloyd, the running back, was selected. Could he be like Marshawn Lynch? Who knows? That would certainly be helpful. You got Josh Jacobs, of course, in that running room, but a guy, um, if he shows any kind of the beast mode like Marshawn Lynch did, that would be very nice to have in the running back room. You also got Kalen King as our last selection in the seventh round. And I think he probably won't see a ton of playing time, especially early, like most seventh round picks will. But just got to hope he's not like Kevin King, especially in the NFC Championship game. So,
Yeah.
you know. But, this time in the NFL, even though there are no games going on, there's still quite a few things going on. So, besides the NFL draft, specifically the Packers draft, in a couple days here on May 15th, the NFL schedule will be released, I believe, at night, like around 7 o'clock. And And obviously, there are a lot of great matchups on this schedule, from playoff rematches to revenge games to just great quarterback matchups. I think got a lot to be excited about on this schedule.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and we'll see as it unfolds. Matchups that you might not have thought would be good, but are. But yeah, plenty to look forward to. It's still a ways off, but it's coming, and it's fun to look forward. In a couple days, it'll be fun to see the week by week, and some potential prime time matchups. So getting halfway through the off season, we're getting towards kickoff again.
Yeah, I mean, the season obviously is still a ways away. We're about 3 months now from the preseason, about 4 months from the regular season, but a lot to look forward to. Now, just taking a look at some of the specific matchups, I think, always revenge games are always interesting. You got Rams Lions, which was the playoff game last year as well. Of course, Matthew Stafford against the Lions, the team he played for all those years, and Jared Goff against the Rams. That's obviously a very interesting matchup. You got the Falcons and Vikings, Kirk Cousins surprisingly going to the Falcons, and obviously we didn't even talk about the Falcons' crazy draft with Michael Penix.
Yes, it was.
But that should be a fun game. And Steelers Broncos with Russell Wilson. Just a lot of interesting, when teams will have to face off against the team that they were playing for all those years. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Certainly is. And then plenty of great matchups. Chiefs, 49ers, Bills, Texans, Lions, 49ers, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Jets, Ravens, Bengals. There's plenty to look forward to, and a lot of them are the same matchups that have been good for some time now. But there's some games that may not have been interesting in past years that are going to be really fun and really good to look forward to over these next few.
Yeah, I think you got a lot of playoff rematches obviously. I think you got the Super Bowl rematch, you got both the NFC Championship and AFC Championship rematch. Obviously Chiefs Bills is always fun, so um, Rams Lions, Packers 49ers, you got a lot of playoff rematches this upcoming year that I'm sure both teams will, or especially the losers of those games, will certainly want revenge.
Yeah.
More specifically, let's take a look at the Packers' schedule. There's one piece of information that we already know with the Packers, as on Friday nights, they in the opening week of the season they will play the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil, the first ever NFL game in Brazil, and obviously that should be quite an exciting matchup with Jordan Love versus Jalen Hurts. The Packers looked really good at the end of last year. The Eagles did not, so we'll see if the Eagles can kind of bounce back from that and get off to a better, or get back to what they were doing at the beginning of the year. But I guess hopefully that will not be the case week one.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one, especially for those Packers fans who fly down there to experience that. We got some tough ones, obviously with the NFC West. I think 49ers and Rams, a couple of playoff teams, and then playing the Texans and the Dolphins at home will be two great games for the fans at Lambeau, and hopefully we can defend our home field against two formidable playoff opponents. And of course, the Lions and the Bears twice. The Lions, look like heavy favorites to repeat as the division champs, and the Bears will be interesting. They have with Caleb Williams, they could look really good this year. It's possible that they look better than they have in a while. But ultimately, they're the Bears, so there is a good chance they find a way to mess it up with him.
Well, yeah, especially usually seems to be the case against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers seem to own the Bears, so hopefully that'll continue. Of course, Packers Lions that turned into a bit of a rivalry last year. Especially the Thanksgiving game that the Packers luckily found a way to win. And then one of the games that you mentioned that I really am like kind of excited for, the Houston Texans at home for the Packers. You got C.J. Stroud, and I mean, like, really, he and Jordan Love really turned it on at times last year and in their wild card playoff games. So that could be a very fun young quarterback matchup. And of course, hopefully the Packers can find a way to get out on top.
Now, and these great matchups and schedule coming out do bring us to the annual question. Maybe not last year, but every other year for our lives. Is this the year for the Packers?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think we're very close. I think, you know, I think definitely within these next few years is our time to contend. Obviously, the NFC 49ers going back to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's definitely possible, but it would be tough for a team to make the Super Bowl back to back years. I think the Packers have definitely a shot. I obviously love what Jordan Love showed at the end of last season, and we'll see how the defense goes. It could be up and down, but I think it's a young team. It now has playoff experience, and we'll see. I think definitely it's tough to answer that question now, but
It is, with there being 9 months until the Super Bowl ultimately. But
yeah,
I think this Packers team will take a big step forward. I mean, we saw how much they grew throughout last season, and obviously it's a really young team. So a lot to be hopeful for and look forward to. I think that in terms of Super Bowl, this probably isn't the year. I think we're still really young, still a lot of growth to come. But I do think that this is going to be a year for us to compete. I feel like playoffs or bust this year, whereas last year we were kind of
mm,
a surprise playoff team a little bit. I think this year, and I think that's where you do want to find yourself in the off season. I think that not making the playoffs would be a huge disappointment, but I think that we really will. I think the goal is probably to at least win one playoff game again, maybe to expand on that and get two. But so ultimately probably not the year for a Super Bowl, but it'll be another year of with a winning record and another year of playoff competition.
yeah, I could certainly see that. I mean, obviously the biggest question is, can we finally defeat the 49ers in the playoffs? I mean, they've unfortunately gotten us a few too many times. I think certainly down the line with Jordan Love, I could see us beating the 49ers. Um, but yeah, I think this year it could be interesting. I think, as W said, I think that will definitely contend again. I think it could actually be a similar story to where we like kind of struggle early in the season and then maybe turn it on more late, get some momentum going into the playoffs. I think if we could just bring in like some veteran player or something, then I would feel like maybe very good that we could really make a run at the Super Bowl. But it definitely can seem at points like a stretch to have that young of a team go all the way. But I mean, who knows? No one thought they could make the divisional round last year and get close to winning it. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a lot, obviously, about the NFL season coming up, but there are other seasons in sports that are already underway, like the MLB season. And specifically, let's take a look at obviously our team, the Milwaukee Brewers. It's been a pretty solid start to the season, up and down at times, but overall, first in the NL Central ahead of the Cubs. So solid start, of course, to the season for the Brewers. Their offense has looked quite impressive at times. The pitching, it has its ups and downs. I mean, Freddie Peralta, fastball Freddie's still there, but a lot of rookies after that, and guys who are not we're not expected to be starting pitchers. But I think overall, I feel pretty good that the Brewers will at least contend in the NL.
Yeah, it's been a great start. A real fun team that scores a lot of runs. At the time of recording, we are 24-16, which is a really solid start, especially for a team with a lot of change, especially within the pitching ranks. I think that this team has the potential to get better and better as the season goes, and William Contreras right now is hitting 346, which is kind of crazy for today's MLB, and we are already a quarter of the way through the season, and we're well above 500. So I think that it's been a really fun start to the year. Top five or top 10 in runs scored. So very productive offense, and so far this year, when you go to Miller Park, you're going to get runs, and that's makes it real fun.
Yeah, I mean, this team has shown quite a bit of excitement, especially offensively. I mean, I think some guys specifically, Bryce Terang looking better than I expected. Obviously, as you mentioned, Contreras has had a very good start to the season. Um, it could definitely, maybe could even contend for MVP. Maybe it's a little early for that, but I mean, 346 average will certainly get you into conversation. And of course, Christian Yelich, I mean, former MVP, had a couple down years in there, but I think he's back on the rise, especially this year. Now he did deal with the one back injury, which lasted a little longer than expected, but the Brewers still found a way to manage through that. And now, of course, he's back and looking good again. So, yeah, this offense is quite exciting for the Brewers so far.
So far, there's been not too well. There has been injury issues. Obviously, most notably Christian Yelich and Devin Williams. On Yelich, he hasn't played too much so far, but when he has been on the field and healthy, he's been hitting incredibly well. I think he has an OPS over 1100, which is beyond what would be a goal for him. So we'll see if he can keep that up. But it's not it's certainly not all on him this year to do the hitting. Contreras and Terang have also provided plenty of offense. So even though Yelich's injury is lasting longer than expected, ultimately it's still May. Still a lot of time, a lot of games left. So it's probably okay for him to
Yeah.
rest as long as he needs and come back fully healthy.
Well, yeah, it's certainly better now than if this injury got worse and he had to miss like a month or two of games.
Yeah.
And of course, offensively, you can't forget about Reese Hoskins, the team leader in homers. He's showed up. His average isn't the best, but of course, he's also coming off uh, the season-ending injury from last season. So this Brewers offense has looked good. They're pitching a bit iffy, but Gasser looked pretty solid in his first starts. And I think that the bullpen should obviously improve when the closer Devin Williams is back. I think this team, at bare minimum, they should probably contend for the NL Central. And obviously, there are teams like the Braves, the Dodgers, the Phillies. I feel like they could be tough to beat come playoff time. Um, but yeah, I think at least for now, just keep doing what they're doing offensively. Look for maybe some pitchers come the trade deadline, and yeah, I think we can be right there in the NL Central.
Yeah, fastball Freddy has delivered. He hasn't really ever been the number one on the staff, and he's showing why he is this year. Obviously, with injuries and trades, we're looking at probably a weaker starting rotation than we've had in a while. But ultimately, it's not poor, which is what gets you into the playoffs, right? As being at least middle of the pack in offense and defense. So as long as I think with how good our offense is, as long as the defense and the pitching can be middle of the road, we'll be playing baseball in October, and that is ultimately what's most important. So I'd say the pitching it's been solid. It's definitely something that we'll, fingers crossed, be looking at when the trade deadline comes around. But um, but we'll see. I mean, Devin Williams will return. Um, so hopefully the bullpen will become more lights out, and we'll be able to finish off games easier.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's looking pretty good for the Brewers. Half game ahead of the Cubs as of now. I think that they are, certainly going to be in contention in the NL, and they definitely got a good chance. It looks like it's going to be between them and Craig's team, the Chicago Cubs, in the NL Central. So yeah, but I think it's off to a solid start, and hopefully that'll continue as the season continues to go along. So moving on from the Brewers to a team that season is unfortunately over, the Milwaukee Bucks did not end in the best way you could have imagined, uh, losing in the first round in the second consecutive year, this time to the Indiana Pacers. Of course, last year, the heartbreaker to the Miami Heat. I mean, this year I think was a little more predictable as Giannis was injured and Dame was dealing with injuries. And obviously, their offense, just fast break offense, just tough to stop sometimes. But obviously, still very disappointing that game three, very winnable, couldn't quite get it done despite the Middleton buzzer beater at the end of regulation, and certainly had other chances in that series. So tough end for the Bucks. A lot of questions, I guess, coming up this offseason.
Yeah, it ultimately was very anticlimactic. I think that where last year was a bit more infuriating and frustrating, this year just kind of felt like it was just more disappointing than upsetting. Um, feels as fans like we're the parent coming in telling them we're not mad, we're just disappointed. Because ultimately, feels like there was kind of nothing you could do with those injuries. It was a Pacers team that looked really bad at times and looked really good at either or at others, and ultimately the team that we had on the floor just wasn't a playoff team, much less a team that could win a playoff series. I think that it's unfortunate, but it's in the rearview mirror now, and all we can do is focus on where we go from here.
Yeah. Hopefully, I think injuries are one of the bigger concerns probably with having to rely on guys like Portis and Middleton to come through every game and Lopez. Hopefully, Giannis can. I mean, I think like one of the big things with him and maybe even Dame as well is to maybe like limit the minutes a little more in the regular season. I think Giannis, especially, I saw he played like over 70 of the games and he averaged like 35 minutes, which is more than he usually did in the past. So, maybe that was part of the reason why the injury kept him out for so long. I think that, uh, that would certainly have changed the series a little bit had we have had Giannis. I mean, obviously we won game one and game five fairly easily. We had a couple just losses where, if we had one more piece, especially an MVP piece, that would definitely help quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's well. Obviously, it's a completely different series if we're at full health. But I think that from here, I think that with Giannis and Dame is obviously a great core. There's really nothing you can do to improve that. But I think around them we need to get younger. I think that
Yeah.
it showed, especially once we were injured. But and because the Pacers are a team that plays with so much pace, so much transition offense, that our age really showed against them. We gave up a lot of easy buckets, which, when you're the less skilled team, ultimately really hurts, it turns out. But I think that we do need to get younger in our role players. I think that there are some guys that we really love and have been around, or Danilo Gallinari is just kind of a role player and nothing more. But I think that around Damon Giannis, ultimately, we should be trying to go younger. I think that you saw that again in part because of the speed with which the Pacers played. It felt like guys like Ajax and Beasley were a lot more into the game, a lot more energetic and less tired throughout, especially once you got to the second halves. But I think you saw that when those guys were on the floor, they had a lot more of an impact, even if they aren't as big of scoring threats or whatever. So finding some younger role players would be the first step because there's not a whole lot else you can change.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I especially noticed with Brooke Lopez, seemed like he was having quite a bit of troubles guarding that defense sometimes, trying to catch up. And not to say he's a bad center. I mean, he certainly had another solid year for the Bucks and helped them get to where they got to. But I think, yeah, as you said, I mean, in order to stop a team that's young and hungry like that and plays with a lot of pace, you need to build a younger core around. And one other question with the Bucks is the idea of Doc Rivers. Obviously, a very strange move mid-season when we were having some success with Adrian Griffin. Doc Rivers losing record, and of course, could not get it done in the playoffs. So, a question for a lot of teams, no different for the Bucks. Should they fire their head coach again?
I think they should. It's a weird situation where he's only been here for a few months, but I think that I honestly didn't hate the risk in the moment to go out and get an experienced coach, but I think that it's obviously not going to work, and it's definitely not an improvement to our team. He has a history in Milwaukee with Marquette, and he obviously has a lot of NBA coaching experience, but I think that it it just feels like it would be a waste of a few years to hire him back. I think that he has kind of proven that he's not a coach that can push a team over the edge. So it just I liked taking the risk, trying to put all your cards on the table for this year, but I think that he just isn't the guy.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think that he, you know, I mean, it just was like a strange move when you're having that much success, but I do think that, to an extent, it makes some sense to at least try to win a championship if you think a guy like that can win a championship. Now, the big problem was, he didn't win one since 2008 with the Celtics and obviously blew a few series leads at times in there as well. I mean, he's ultimately a good coach, especially in the regular season, but to take this team over the hump and to make them actually win a championship, I kind of do agree with that. That's we probably need to move on from Doc Rivers and find possibly a younger coach, possibly someone who can find younger talent and build around this team, and um, hopefully get this team to a championship eventually. But with that being said, there is still a NBA championship to be won. We are obviously in the second round, the conference semifinals right now, and 8 teams remain. The big question now is which one of these teams do we think will win it all? So I guess I'll start with you, Mr. W. Who do you think has the best chance, and who do you think will win it all?
The thing that I'm fairly sure of, or that I really like, is that the winner of the Nuggets Wolves series, I think, will win it all. I am pretty sure of that, but I gotta pick a team, so I'm gonna take the Timberwolves. I think that while the Nuggets have the the best 2-man game in the world, the Timberwolves have the best defense in the league, at least right now in the playoffs. They're playing some smothering defense. They're really impressive, especially on the defensive end with the different coverages and how they guard and how they game plan. Leaving Aaron Gordon alone, and obviously they have some great defenders inside and outside. A lot of length at the guard positions, and then on the inside you got Cat and especially Rudy Gobert, who's it's been the decoy for a reason. It's because he's a great inside presence. So I really do like the Timberwolves. I think that the Celtics are a really tough team, but I think that the Timberwolves have one thing that no one else in the league does, and that's a defense that stands out. It's a defense that's so good that on the NBA 10-minute highlights, they have to show Timberwolves defensive highlights, which is
Yeah.
a new thing for that channel. So I like the Timberwolves. They're so fun to watch offensively and defensively. I think offensively the ball can get stuck for them pretty often, especially when you contrast their offense with with the Nuggets' incredible offense. But I think that the Timberwolves just they're a bit young, but I think that they're the best team right now.
Yeah, I mean Anthony Edwards certainly looked really good even in the loss in game 4. The Timberwolves a couple tough losses at home. I think the Nuggets have built some momentum in that series. I do like that the winner of that series will end up representing the Western Conference in the finals. But I am going to go with the Nuggets to make it and also find a way to win. I think the Nikola Jokic, the experience factor, uh, Jamal Murray, they just find ways to win games that they really shouldn't. We saw that in the Lakers series. A couple games where they were down for almost the entire game and they just found a way at the end. That'll definitely be an interesting series, but I do like the Nuggets to finish off that series there. Another team in the Western Conference that I kind of like, the Dallas Mavericks as the 5 seed. I think that they could. I like them to knock off the Thunder in this series. The Thunder are still a bit young, I think. Um, Obviously, Luca and Kyrie. It kind of feels like, very solid overall team. I think that they will be right in the mix. And then, in the next round, I don't know if I love them to beat either the Timberwolves or the Nuggets, but I think they could contend in that. But then, of course, looking at the Eastern Conference, I don't know if anybody can really knock off the Celtics. I mean, I certainly don't trust the Cavs to do that in this series, and I don't know if the Pacers or Knicks really can win more than a game or two against Boston in a 7-game series. But I think that so Boston has a pretty good clear path to the NBA Finals. I'd say Celtics Nuggets, which is probably the most common overall prediction, is my prediction. And I have the Denver Nuggets coming out on top and repeating, going for the back to back.
Yeah, they are a really good team that can turn into a dynasty. Anything else to give the people at home? Any other words of advice or topics to go over?
Well, just obviously, just stay tuned to the conference semifinals. Obviously, you got a lot that will probably end up surprising us in the end. But yeah, certainly Celtics and Nuggets, and the winner of Nuggets Timberwolves, whoever that is. I think you've got a lot to look at in the NBA right now. A lot of teams that feel like they could contend, but you do have some question marks with the Celtics. Can they finish a job? With the Nuggets, can they go back to back? And with some of those other teams, are they too young? So we'll see. A lot to be decided here. with that being said, that pretty much covers everything we had for today, all the topics that we wanted to go over. Obviously, thank you for listening all the way through. And, as you know, we are unfortunately coming up on just the baseball time in sports where, um, it's just going to be a lot of Brewers games on, probably obviously going to Brewers games is fun, but it certainly can be tough to watch all those games. But that does not mean that there's still not a lot to discuss across the sports world. Obviously, there's still a lot in the NBA coming up on the NFL, and there's stuff in the MLB as well. And most importantly, in Wisconsin sports. So stay tuned for our next episode, and of course, like and subscribe if you are new.
And don't forget to book a flight to New Orleans in February.
Yeah, because Packers will be there this
I'm
year.
putting my deposit down for sure.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely be worth it.